Hi everybody, so hopefully you've seen the previous video where Adam described the way in which we were going to thread on the components onto the axle. So as you can see, we've now done that. So we have used the drift, moved the axle through the bearings. If Adam would zoom in, we've used the grub screws once centered in order to lock the axle in place so we haven't got any play left to right. As we described, we've got the two chains. Now obviously you will have a second chain that isn't in use. So there are two options to that. You can either run a cable tie through the back of the chain onto the bumper and drill a hole in the back of the seat and cable tie to the back of the seat so it sits proud of the axle and just sort of floats, or you can bunch up the chain and run a cable tie through it so it sits without hitting the floor. So really it's your choice, and it will depend on what fits best with your chassis, seat position and whatever, because if the chain obviously isn't long enough to reach the seat, not a preferable option. Once all that's done, what we've done is we've put the brake caliper back on and we've made sure that the disc centers and rotates before we've connected up and tightened on these Allen key bolts to make sure that the disc can't move left to right. Now in this instance, this is a floating disc, so that is appropriate for this disc system. Some are solid, some float. This one just happens to be a floating one. We've obviously then attached the hubs, which is where we're going to attach the wheels to, and each one of these has a keyway as described. So as you can see, the inboarded keyway for the sprocket carrier is there, but we also have a keyway that sits inside the hub in this little recess here. Same on the brake disc carrier, just in there, and the same on the other hub. So essentially once all that's done, you've got your axle centered, you've got your grub screws in, and you've got all your components set. Obviously make sure that all of your bolts which attach your axle carriers to the axle hangers are all tight. And then in theory, this should spin fairly freely. Now, the one thing we do have on this chassis, because it's come as a normal senior chassis that's set up for a two-stroke, we have an exhaust bracket, because the exhaust on a GX engine, as you can see down here, is built internally, so it doesn't sit extended from the engine. So in this instance, we can just remove this and keep it. So if we ever want to use the chassis again as a two-stroke, we can put it back on. If we don't, we can just keep it aside for if we ever sell the chassis. So that is essentially how we've gone from a traditional two-stroke set senior chassis and converted it so that we've got the inboard in so that we can mount the engine in a different position with the sprocket in the inside.